Hello, ladies and gentlemen of SeemsGoodMagic.com. This is Travis Sowers, and we are jumping into an Aether Revolt Kaladesh Intermediate Swiss Draft League. Let's see what we can do here. Hopefully open something good. Right, Dutch? He didn't squeak that time. Sometimes he squeaks. Sometimes he does not. All right, so some good stuff in this pack. We're probably going to take Rishkar, as I think that's the most broken card here. Let's go ahead and get that highlighted. I've been impressed with the Skyship Plunderer a good bit too. Have not, like, Conviction's playable. It's not amazing. Decommission is something you want in your white decks. Yeah, I think the best cards in this pack are probably Rishkar, Skyship Plunderer, Prey Upon, and the Aether Thief, in that order. There's also the Spire Patrol, which is certainly a good card, but being dual colored means it's a lot more difficult to fit in your deck. So this is a pretty easy Rishkar. We'll take that and see what comes our way. Ideally, black-green counter shenanigans is exceptionally open. It's worth noting, this does not mean that we're green. It's not easy being green in Kaladesh Aether Revolt Limited. The cards are highly contested because they're so good. So we'll start here and see what comes our way. Looks like what comes our way is an interesting assortment here. We've got Merchant's Dockhand, which I like quite a bit in blue. I don't know that I want to go into blue for it. Daring Demolition is probably the best card on its own. I've heard a lot of people say that this is more playable than we initially thought, and I can believe that. And then there's a Prey Upon if we want to kind of force the green issue. I think in the blind, if I'm looking at this pack, we're talking about Daring Demolition and the Dockhand. I also think that Rishkar is a strong enough card that we should try to play it if we can. And the difference between, like, I think I would default to the Daring Demolition. The difference between Daring and Demolition and Prey Upon is not that great. It is there, right? Like, this is rarely going to kill a vehicle that you care about. This just says anything's dead. That's a pretty powerful statement to make. This says if you have a creature bigger than your opponent's, something's dead. I'm not usually one for saying that cutting green matters, but I'm going to try it here. It's a little bit risky, but we'll see where we end up. Where we end up is maybe blue. Maybe blue. I've noticed these two in the same packs quite often. And the Skyship Plunderer is easily the best card here. Take this, see if maybe we can have the Automaton Wheel. The Plunderer plays very nicely with some green cards. Again, we're not 100% green yet. And we may end up missing that Daring Demolition. But this is a nice start to a deck. Hopefully we see a green card here that's good, and we can say, okay, we did it. It looks like that's not where we are. There's some mediocre white. Bastion Inventor's fine but not exciting. Sweatworks Brawler, kind of the same scenario. I think we're just going to take a Renegade map. This is a bit of a blank pack. There's cards here that I like. The Infiltrator's good if you're doing white aggro. The Sweatworks Brawler is good in red Improvise. Same with the Fin Hauler. Obsolescence all main deck. Lifecrafter's Gift I haven't quite found the deck for, but Renegade Map goes in every deck and makes the deck better. So we're just going to go there and kind of see what comes around. All right, now here's where we have to really make a determination, because Shock this late is a bit of a signal. There's a Heroic Intervention, which is fine. It's kind of like a counterspell. There's also the Green Implement, which I like a lot. It could do something interesting in blue-green. It also gives us potentially more counters to play with Rishkar and the Skyship Plunderer. Like, we could easily be blue-red after these two picks. We could also easily be green-red. I think if you're not going to pay attention to signals, you should probably stop drafting. I'm going to take the Shock and we'll see where we go. Okay, so green is probably something we want to be doing. There's a Lifecraft Cavalry, which I like a lot, and a Druid of the Cowl, which I also like a lot. I think here I'm interested in the first Lifecraft Cavalry. Those tend to go a little sooner. This is probably a crazy pick. Can that be right? Like, we've got a map to work with it. We do want some big things. I'm going to have to take the Druid. The Druid's just a better card. in the blind. Still not quite knowing what we're doing, but like I said, I'll main deck one of these and be pretty happy with it. So we've got some call into blue, some call into red. We'll see exactly what starts coming around. It looks like green is open-ish. Maybe not like wide open, but it's okay. That pack with the Druid and the Lifecraft Cavalry makes me think we could be doing something there. I can't quite go in on that. Now, Leaving the Dust can be quite good if you're blue-green. The Crusher is usually pretty good, in any deck. It's certainly playable. We don't necessarily have anything to crew it now, but we can get it. Like, if your blue deck is missing a Leaving the Dust, I think you're okay. The fact that we're not really sold on being blue right now, I think means we should just take this Crusher. Like, if I 100% know that I'm blue-green, we're probably taking that. That's not the world we're living in. Here we're looking at basically filler level cards. Metallic Rebuke is fine. Wrangle is fine. Night Market Guard is fine. Like, fail case scenario, I guess we're okay playing something like this. I'm not super thrilled about it. Now we're starting to see some cards that matter. Murray is certainly playable. It doesn't do a good job of crewing the Crusher. The energy payoffs are mostly in the last couple packs, but again, the Plunderer with these counter shenanigans can be good. I have played this card before and probably will again. And we're starting to see some good stuff here. I'm going to take the second Obsolescence to cut green a little bit. I usually don't main deck two of them. Elite is fine if we start hitting some more Revolt enablers. I'm not super thrilled with the card, but like I said, I think we're green-blue based on what we saw coming around. So we'll start looking at that. The Shock is still interesting, and we've got a pile of potential playables over here. Your deck's not awful if you're running two main deck Obsolescences. Like, there's plenty of vehicles running around. But the Plunderer works with a lot of our cards currently. Obviously, counters from here, energy from here. It can do a lot of stuff. Now, here's a strange moment, isn't it? Because, like, Maverick Thopterist is great, and we're halfway to splashing. We could find more. Outland Boar plus the Shock pushes us in an entirely different direction, but it's not a bad direction. And then there's always the safe pick of the Chandra's Revolution. This is actually a really tough pick for me. Like, a lot of the power of the Thopterist is getting it out early, and this deck isn't going to be able to do that, but it's still a 4-for-1. A lot of the power of the Boar is it's just huge, and it's hard for people to block, and it kills them. I think I like the Boar better than the Chandra's Revolution, considering we're essentially green at this point. If I take the Thopterist, I'm committing to splashing it, which means we'll need to look for mana fixing. We could possibly also splash a Shock, although I don't always love doing that. I'm kind of interested in that Thopterist, but I got a good feeling about this Boar. Let's see where this goes. It goes into another Shock if we want it, but I think we'll take the Bandar. If we end up playing the blue instead, that lets the Plunderer play. We could potentially splash this in the blue. I don't necessarily know that you would, but you could. Leopard's a good card, but I'm going to stick with the green picks while I can. This pack doesn't really have much for anybody. It's got a Hinterland Drake, which is a fine card, and a Destructive Tampering. This is where I kind of need to go ahead and start, like, committing hard to a color. Now that we've got another counter shenanigan, I kind of think I just want it to be blue, which makes that Outland Boar pick a little questionable. Not so crazy that I can't swap back again, because, like, I don't hate Sailback, and I really do like Destructive Tampering. Yeah, let's go with the Drake. The Drake's just a fine card, and I think we've got something I can get behind going on here. Got an Ice Over, which is kind of mediocre removal, versus a Prey Upon, which I think should be good with the Crusher. Not necessarily anything else, but I'll give it a shot. I've ended up sometimes with Prey Upon and not having enough big stuff to just kind of get them. There's the giant. It's kind of hard to tell what's going on here. I don't hate another crusher, but we really need somebody to drive these cars. We're not actually getting much value off of the blue implement here without any shenanigans. Like, we can take another crusher and I'll play 2 crushers. It does make the Prey Upons better. I guess that's where I'm at, is 2 monster trucks. I guess white was the answer all along, for those of you who are wondering. Is it crazy to think that we might splash that? It kind of is at this point. Like, we're getting to a little bit low on playables. I'll still try it. Like, we'll see what's going on here. And there's another shock. This is such a strange format. Like, there's a relatively late hidden stockpile. We're short enough playables that I probably just have to take a rebuke, even though it's going to be kind of terrible. Screw it, we'll take the shock. And there's another one. All of a sudden, the red is starting to look better than the blue. Okay. Not really sure what's happening here, but we can work it out. I hope we're not this desperate, but we may very well be. I don't think we want a Mr. Garrison here. In fact, I'd almost assuredly say that we don't, but I'm just going to start taking playables at this point. Like, red looked more open there. If we can spin one of those 5/4s, I think we're happy with it. It's just like, I understand you've got to commit at some point, right? But all we've really seen is that maybe I went into green and shouldn't have. It's kind of hard to say. Yeah, we're probably looking at a Night Market Guard deck. Oh, there's a sailback. Okay. That saves us a little bit. So we got a bunch of shocks, a bunch of Prey Upons. We kind of just need a couple big dudes. Anything with 3 power gets a little better now as we're looking at driving some cars. That was so weird. I thought we were blue-green and then we were not. I think one of the issues with green in this format, Dave has talked about this some on the podcast too, is that green is so deep that you can think that it's open when it's really not. So the Thriving Rhino would obviously be great for us. I'm wondering if I wouldn't rather have a Renegade Freighter. Like, we start to get into a bit of too many cars and not enough drivers if I take it. So it's likely replacing a Crusher. Whereas the Rhino just kind of does what it do. And what it do is good. Yeah, we've got the opportunity for potentially a turn 3 train. I don't think I can say no to that. I don't think I can say no to that. It's close, but I don't think we can say no to that. Thriving Grubs is interesting. It can get big pretty quickly. I like the gear per guide. It crews both of these if we end up playing both of them. And it does give us a mana sink for later. If we're 100% red, and I think we're at the point where I kind of have to make that determination and say that we are, I probably want the Grubs. And a tune with Aether or 2, and I may even consider playing this. Like, we've got so many counter shenanigans going on now. There's not really, like, energy running all over the place. So this is kind of a self-contained energy card, but a 2-mana 3/2 can be quite good. Gives the chance for some aggressive openings. Random Black Bomb. Okay. I think Goggles got a lot better. This is where I really missed that one destructive tampering that we passed. Aether Torch Renegade is fine. It certainly got better. Again, with the amount of X1s that are in the format, so I think we can get behind that. I'm just kind of concerned about the rest of our deck at this point. We can't run a Sky Skiff. We can run a Tiger. It's another big thing that plays well with Prey Upon. So it's kind of like we got the shock and prey upon deck. We are picking up some energy payoffs here. I'd still like to get our creature count up to 14-ish. Yeah, that destructive tampering would be really, really good in this deck. Because it can get a lot of power on the board. It's just going to lean pretty hard on these to finish it off. Still not 100% sold on the Silkweaver Elite, but we can probably do it. I'm likely to play 16 lands and the map unless things change dramatically from here. Alright, Seed Sculptor we can take. My goodness, does this Skyship Plunderer look absurd here? There's so many counters running around now. Show me an attune with Aether and I'll do it. I'm just that kind of crazy. Like Murray, Drake, Dispersal Technician, these are all playable. The problem is Shock's really good too, but we could do something with like a three islands in the deck, play a couple of these, just be 3 color. It's not going to happen unless we get to a few more playables. Hijack is a way to force through damage, but we're kind of short on dudes at this point. Like the Reckless Fireweaver basically does nothing. The Accomplished Automaton is big. If we're going to make a mess of a deck and play blue, we could play Malfunction and have like Malfunction, Technician, Drake, Plunderer. That's so bad. There's just nothing here that's playable. I think we've got a bit of a train wreck on our hands here, boys and girls. It doesn't happen often, but it certainly can. There's never playing a Hijack. We'll take the trade wins. I think what's likely here is that green wasn't open and blue-red might have been where we were supposed to be. I wouldn't be sad having this if the deck had come together a little better, but it didn't. So let's see how we can... Actually, I'm pretty happy about the Cowl Prowler. Let's see if we can minimize our issues here. I've already got one of those. I think I would like to have the Plunderer in this deck. There's too many counters not to try to do something with it. Right, Demolish is a fine sideboard card. There's no way I can make the turtle work. I'd really like to, but that's, I think, a pipe dream. I only ever need 1 red, right? I'll still take the turtle. Like we could kind of splash. Man, this is a train wreck. A really good train wreck. I like it. All right, so let's see what we can do with this. We're not quite there on playables unless we bring in the blue. Like, let's say we just splash for a Skyship Plunderer. I don't really have to run a lot of blue to make that happen. I'm not super thrilled about this Silkweaver Elite either. Like, we could look at something like playing the Hinterland Drake. I would say over this, but it plays so nicely with these Crushers. But maybe I don't need one if we've got the Cowl Prowler and I can do something like this. We've got a little bit of evasion going in the air. Like, this card just turns everything in the deck on. God, this is going to be such a rough mana base, and I hate running stuff like this. If I'm not running it, we'd have to cut the blue and basically run a Foundry Assembler. And I'm not convinced I want to do that either. Like, again, we could put Mr. Garrison in here, but our creature count gets a little too low. Yeah, I think I've only got room for 2 vehicles, and these are the better vehicles. This is ugly. Ugly, ugly, ugly. Those of you who have watched me draft or watched me stream before know that this is not something I'm happy about. We certainly need 9 here. And I think we can do something like this. Again, we only ever need 1 red. We'd like it relatively early. This is without counting the Renegade map. If I count the Renegade map, I've got 3 sources for 2 cards. Like, that's not good enough. It might be if I play the Technician over the Drake, which I don't like. The Drake's a better card. But I'm never landing it on time. God, what a mana base, Travis. Maybe I can pull it off if I'm willing to play 1 less forest for the mountain. And that'd have to be for another island. God, that's really leaning high on that map. That's really leaning high on that map because I don't really need the double green either until here. Like, I can keep most hands that have, like, even a hand, if I've got 2 colors of mana, it kind of doesn't matter what it is, I can keep the hand. Yeah, I think this is probably the best I can do. It's an ugly mana base, and I'm not in love with what we're doing here, but I think we could probably steal a 2-1 with this. And with this deck, I would be happy with that. I would be quite happy with that. The other option would be to just not play the blue and play the other Crusher and the Terror of the Fairgrounds, which are not good cards, but they will at least consistently let you curve out and attack your opponent. The Terror playing so poorly with the Prey Upon is what's making me want to go for a little bit of a combo here. We could also consider cutting a Shock for a Malfunction. Or maybe the Natural Obsolescence for a Malfunction, but that just makes the mana even worse. All right, wish me luck.